Alright guys, we're going to do 10-8 today, and today is just a game to practice place value. So if you remember, when we read, we always start from left to right, but when we do place value, we actually start on the right side, and that starts with ones, and then tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, and it keeps going, okay? If there is ever a spot where you don't have any, so let's say there's not any hundreds, you can't just leave that spot blank. You have to put a 0 there, or else it changes the number completely. Kind of like when we did money. We talked about how there always had to be 2 numbers after the decimal point for that also. So make sure if you don't have anything in that spot that you put a 0 there. There has to be something there. Now, today is going to be a game, so I'm going to go over directions with the game because there might be some things you have to do to change the directions a little depending on what supplies you have at home. So the directions are on page 253 in your math journal, and it says you're going to need a 6-sided dice and a 10 or 12-sided dice. Now, I'm guessing most of you probably don't have a 10 or 12-sided dice, so if you wanted to, you could just take a piece of paper, rip it into little pieces, and then number 1 through 12 on them and put them in a bowl or a cup or something and just pull from that. You could do the same thing with the 6-sided dice if you don't have that at home, okay? It also says you're going to need 24 pennies, 39 dimes, 39 $1 bills, and 1 $10 bill. Again, if you don't have a bunch of change at home, you can just use paper and make your own. It's just so you know what you're going to be putting on your game board. So it's not a big deal if you don't have actual money that you can use for this, okay? It says players can be 2 or 3, and we're just working on exchanging. Once we get enough of, let's say we get 10 pennies, we can exchange for a dime. Or once we get 10 dimes, we can exchange for a $1 bill. So we're just going to work on exchanging and working on money that is equivalent or equal. So now the directions. So the object of the game is the first person to get $10, okay? So the directions. Each player puts 12 pennies, 12 dimes, $12 bills, and 1 $10 bill in the bank. So kind of like Monopoly has a bank. Players are going to take turns. You're going to use your 6-sided dice to represent pennies and the 10 or 12-sided dice to represent dimes. So again, if you don't have these, just get 2 cups. In one cup, rip up paper 1 through 6 on each slip, and in your other cup, rip up papers and 1 through 10 or 12 and put those in that cup, okay? So each player gets to roll the dice, and you take from the bank the number of pennies and dimes shown on the faces. So let's say I roll my 6-sided dice and I get 5, I get to take 5 pennies. And then let's say from my 12-sided dice, I roll a 10, I can get 10 dimes. Now, I'm going to put the coins in the correct columns on the place value mat, which is on 254, the page right beside it. And if I'm able to, I'm going to replace my coins or bills with things that are bigger. So in my example that I gave you, if I rolled a 10 for my dimes, I'm going to replace my 10 dimes with a $1 bill because that's a lot easier to keep track of on my mat than all of these dimes. And you're going to make sure you put them in the right spot. So the mat shows you pennies, dimes, dollars, and then the $10 bill, okay? So for this game, quarters aren't going to matter, nickels aren't going to matter. It's just the pennies, dimes, and $1 bills. And you're going to keep taking turns, rolling the dice or picking your piece of paper and exchanging until the first person gets $10. Okay, so the goal of the game is to get $10. It says if there's a time limit, you're playing at home, so there's really no time limit. If we were playing at school, I might put a time limit on this, but since you're at home, you can just keep playing until somebody gets to the $10. So just remember, the 6-sided dice is for pennies, 12-sided dice is for dimes, and any chance you get to trade in and exchange, you want to do that to better keep track of how much money you have, okay? And that should be all that you're doing today. So just work on exchanging and keeping track of your money. And if you really like the game, you can play more than once. Maybe play with a different person the second time that you play if you want to. But Just keep working on those place values and remembering which spot each number is in, and have fun.